The embarrassment at Oracle, whose fault is it, and where do the Giants go from here? That's all coming up next on Locked On Giants.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to another Locked On Giants episode, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. My name is Alan Stiles. On the show, we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that combines passion, analytics with the eye test, and a little bit of fun. I'm from the Bay Area. I also host a show in Sacramento now at Sacktown Sports 1140, as well as emceeing at the Sacramento River Cats game. So if you're ever out there, come give me a shout. I'm lucky enough to cover a team that I've been a fan of all my life. But today, I don't know how fun it's going to be. It's time to break down the embarrassment at Oracle Park as the Giants get swept by the San Diego Padres in embarrassing fashion, whose fault it actually is, and where the Giants go from here. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. I keep on calling it this. I'm going to continue to call it this: the embarrassment at Oracle. The embarrassment at Oracle Park. There is so much that I want to dive right on into, but I feel like I want to give everybody a little bit of context. I started this show earlier this week, and we've had a lot of great feedback. I appreciate everybody for that. I know it can be different when your routine changes. There's a new person in the fold, so I appreciate all the love that you've shown me, bringing me in to the Giants podcast content creator community. And I want to give you a little bit more of a background before I dive into my feelings on what happened yesterday at Oracle Park. Y'all are still getting to know me, and this is going to be one of those shows where it's just all going to come out. But I realized that I never actually got around to sharing how my Giants fandom got started. So I was about 7 or 8 years old when I went to my first Giants game. My mom got a new job. We had moved out here from Virginia to the Bay Area when I was 5 years old. So eventually we got out to a game. In that game, JT Snow hit a home run. We stayed after to wave to the players as they left, and I got to see Dusty Baker leave on his motorcycle. Now, fun fact, I actually got to tell Dusty this story a couple weeks ago when he threw out the first pitch for the River Cats. But that's where my fandom began. And through all the ups and downs that we've had as Giants fans, it's still been a lot more ups and downs, right? At least that's how it's felt. Or the highs have been as high as you could ever dream of with those World Series. But yesterday was one of the most embarrassing days I've ever experienced as a Giants fan. And as somebody who covers the team, I really found myself at a loss for words. That second inning was a combination of poor execution and, yes, some bad luck. But like I said, the series was already lost. So all of this was just the cherry on top of a disgusting Sunday that we watched with the San Francisco Giants. I went back and forth with a lot of people as far as whether or not the roster is good enough and guys got to perform, and we'll get into all of that throughout the next 30 minutes. But the saddest part about yesterday was there was simply no pride. They put on that orange and black, and they had no fight. Ramos spikes a ball. Bob says it's not his fault. Okay, Bob, well, it's somebody's fault. Can you make sure that doesn't happen again? Can you get upset for once? And here's the thing. I understand that the Giants sold at the deadline. They told us what it was. A lot of us still had hope because they do have big money players. We're going to talk about them too. But it's not even about missing the playoffs. And it's not over, by the way. But it's not about missing the playoffs. It's simply about not having the focus, or dare I say the want to, or dare I say the care to not lay an egg in front of the 35,000 people that are still going out there paying their hard-earned money to show up. It's that simple. It's that simple. It's not necessarily about who did this or who did that, and we will get into all of that throughout the show, but it's just about a level of pride. And to go out there to be essentially beaten down in the second inning, at the beginning of the game, and not have any type of bounce back. Now, I get it. I mean, what was it, 7-0, 5-0, 7-0 after the second inning, and you've already gotten smacked by this team the two previous games? I'm not saying it's easy, but again, where is the leadership? And that's not even about Bob Melvin. Where is the leadership? Willy Adames, he said that this was the toughest season of his career. Okay, I hear you, Willy. I know it's not easy moving and changing your places of living. I understand all that. I do. But at some point, somebody has to have a level of pride. And I saw none of that yesterday. Booted balls, lackadaisical effort, no fight at the plate. They're completely lost at the plate. Just no urgency whatsoever. Zero. In all my years as a Giants fan, and here's the thing, expectations have been different. This isn't the worst Giants team. This isn't the most embarrassing Giants loss. But based on who you have on that team, and this is exactly why I'm not giving them the cop-out of, oh, well, that roster's not good enough, and they need to do this, and Buster's still building. Sure. But what we saw yesterday was not that. What we saw yesterday was a team that gave up in front of 35,000 people. That's what it was. A team that rolled over. A team that said, Uncle, I'm good. A team that laid an absolute egg. So I don't want to hear about the different holes in different positions, albeit true. And like I said, we will discuss all of that. But before we even get to that, we have to talk about the fact that the Giants simply didn't show up. They put their jersey on, they put their cleats on, they put their pants on, but they were not there. They were not there. They were on cruise control. They were out there in a Tesla. They were on autopilot. They were not actually there. And I don't know if it's because of Bob Melvin. I don't know if it's because of the situation that you sold at the deadline, but they were not there. Maybe Yaz was the guy trying to hold this whole thing together. I don't know. But it was an embarrassment. And somehow the word embarrassment feels like an understatement. Feels like there should be a stronger word than embarrassment. This whole record, this whole time leading up to the selling at the deadline, a complete implosion. So as we get into whether or not this is on Bob Melvin, this is on Pat Burrow, whoever you want to put it on that's not Buster Posey, whoever you want to put it on that is not wearing a uniform, well, they all wear uniforms, that is not actually playing in the game, we will not go to that before we discuss the fact that the Giants simply just didn't show up. And you can talk about the motivation, and I agree. I don't think Bob Melvin motivates them very well. We can talk about the motivation or lack thereof, but you look your brother in the eye and you say, man, look at all these people that came up to show us love, that came to show us that they still believe in us. And you do that. A day game. Granted, a day game. People got to take off work. I know school's not necessarily back yet for everybody, but people got to take off work. People got to move their schedules around. People got to do a lot of stuff, man, and spend their hard-earned money to come see you. Now, there's some fans out there that probably say, well, then don't do it. And maybe people will stop doing it. Based on what we heard from Bob Melvin, there might not be a reason to do it moving forward. Let the kids play. But you got out there on that diamond that you worked so hard to get to. That money that we all talk about, that monopoly money that they have, you worked for that. You earned that. You put all that into a pile, and you decided to lay an egg, not only in the second inning, but moving forward with just absolutely no fight. To me, that was the worst part of all this. Not the loss, not the sweep, not essentially saying goodbye to the playoffs. That you looked up in that crowd, you saw kids that had the ability to come see you, parents that took off work to do all of these things, to support you, and you did not reciprocate with the same respect that they gave you. That's my issue with what happened with the San Francisco Giants in yesterday's game. It's not about the loss. It's about how they went about the loss. When we return, we will discuss whose fault it is. Bob Melvin, Buster Posey, the players. Do not move. More Locked On Giants coming up next. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401k, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I know I don't want to do that. Monarch makes it simple to review my finances with my partner, and we can both see budgets, goals, and spending activity in one place. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half your first year, half off of your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. So whose fault is it? Whose fault is it? Everybody, I'm arguing with Giants fans yesterday. Whose fault is this? Is it Buster Posey's fault? Don't hear a lot of that, at least not yet, but you do hear some of it. Is it Buster Posey's fault? Is it Bob Melvin's fault? Heck, throw Pat Burrell in there. I know I did yesterday. Is it Pat Burrell's fault? Whose fault is it? Is it the players' fault? They're getting paid a lot of money. Well, the reality is in sports, we don't like when things aren't black and white. But in life, most things aren't, right? It's not all one person's fault. It's not all another person's fault. That's what's real. That's the reality of the situation. As much as people want to find specific blame, that's just not how it goes. So there's two kind of sides of this that are going to help the Giants get where they need to be. And we are going to discuss both those sides right now. So like I said, I know it's more fun for things to be black and white, but that's just not the case in these situations. The conversation has been about the struggles because of the players or because of the managers and the coaching staff. The reality is that it's both. Now, the idea, hey, this is all on the players. Okay, then why do we even have managers or coaches? And the idea that it's all on the managers. Okay, then why do we pay the players all of this money? Let's start with the coaching perspective. I just don't think that Bob Melvin is motivating the players. That's a big part of it. It's collateral damage, and a lot of times that's the case when it comes to coaching. This is not unique to the Giants. This is how it goes. In addition to that, the lineup decisions have been questionable at times. I know people will say, do managers even make the lineups anymore? Well, even if they don't, I'd like to think that they're at least giving it the green, yellow, or red light if they don't like what they see or if they don't think something makes sense. Maybe it's the analytics thing. I don't know. But I'd like to believe that Bob Melvin is at least seeing the lineup before it gets posted. Maybe he doesn't, though. Some pitching and bullpen decisions that I am more sure that Bob Melvin is a part of, even though I know the bullpen is thinner now. Look, it's the Logan Webb thing from feels like earlier this week, feels like a month ago after this loss yesterday. But there have definitely been some hits and misses when it comes to the X's and O's, not just how Bob goes about his business, but, in the type of, not person. Bob's a great person just from a coaching perspective. Where's the fire, Bob? I'm not even talking fire, just literally from the kind of X's and O's perspective. Now, from the players and roster perspective, their big money guys just haven't been good enough. And this is some of the stuff that I don't know that Bob can help or not, right? Jung-Hoo Lee, $113 million. We also just don't know how good of an MLB player Jung-Hoo Lee is going to be, right? He's shown some flashes. I don't know that he's ever going to be an all-star. If you ask me, Alan, over under 0.5 all-stars for Jung-Hoo Lee, I would probably take the under at this point. Probably. It's only his first full year, I know. But I'd probably take the under. Now, he's, like I said, this is not a break the bank deal per se, just as far as baseball contracts are concerned, relatively speaking, but he's not getting peanuts either. It's a healthy contract. It would be nice to have one all-star mixed in there, or even get snubbed as an all-star, something like that. And maybe he'll get there. We'll see. Matt Chapman, $151 million. I know the advanced stats, like I said, his OPS and different stats that are deeper than what we've seen. I know that Matt Chapman is a solid player, right? We'd like to see more. A lot of people talk about his defense. Hey, Alan, he's not a 3-4-5 hitter. That's what I saw a lot of after the episode yesterday. Okay, fine, right? Fine. That's where you want to go with this. Okay, I'm not going to argue with you. Willy Adames, $182 million. And for Chapman, I would still say that he's underperforming. And he's underperforming based on what he did last season. And that's how we got the contract. Willy Adames, $182 million, underperforming. Rafi Devers, $250 million, underperforming. And they've all shown flashes. They just haven't shown flashes all at the same time. None of them are really earning their paycheck. And I don't know that we can put that blame on Bob Melvin. Outside of the big money players, right field is a revolving door. Second base was a revolving door until Casey Schmidt kind of came into the fold. I guess he could be our second baseman of the future. And okay, that works. Again, not sure how good he's going to be, but I like what I've seen from him at the dish lately. Patrick Bailey has been an absolute nightmare as a hitter, right? So you have three holes in your lineup that I've just said right now, because I'm not counting Casey Schmidt because he's had, a good run here. So three holes in your lineup to start. That leaves 6 other spots. Ramos has been good. I wouldn't say he's been great. So that's, and I won't call Ramos a hole at all, but the combination of that, you're essentially at half of your lineup being a question mark, right? Some big money players is a question mark, which can't happen, and then some actual question marks. Because every lineup has question marks. That's not unique to the Giants. Every lineup has question marks. Every lineup doesn't have 9 dudes that are just rocking and rolling. Not even the Dodgers have that. The Dodgers are close, but the Dodgers, the Phillies, those teams are close, but they're always going to have 1 or 2 kind of questionable spots. But you cannot have 4 or 5 questionable spots. And some of them being the guys that you pay big money to, that's just not going to fly. So this is what happens, right? Moving forward. It'll be a better roster, whether or not they move on from Bob Melvin, right? I think the right field tryout is not pointless because we'll see if somebody gets hot, a la Tyler Fitzgerald last season. And obviously he couldn't continue at that clip or even close to that clip. But you see if somebody gets hot, somebody figures it out in right field. Casey Schmidt, you want him to be the second baseman? Okay, we can leave him there. I have some other names that we'll talk about in the last segment as well. But I think Buster's going to go out and at least fill the right field position and the second base position. That's what I think Buster's going to do. Or at least get an infielder that you can move around in the middle of the infield. And I know Willy is going to lock down shortstop because that's what you paid him to do. But it's not going to be a corner person. No more first baseman. No more third baseman. And no more corner. Well, I was going to say no more corner outfielders unless you're just bringing in somebody who is a big bopper. You kind of have to. And the Elliot Ramos thing, I don't know what to do with Elliot Ramos. Bob going back and forth about the defense. The reason everybody assumed it was an Elliot Ramos thing is because he's been bad defensively in left field. He's not a bad outfielder, but he has moments where he looks like a pretty bad outfielder. But there's nothing. If you're in left field, let me tell you from experience, if you're in left field, there ain't nowhere else for you to go. Maybe you can mess around in right field a little bit. But left field is basically, hey, we really want your bat. Because he can't go to first base. They got 12 first basemen. Bryce Eldridge is waiting. So I don't know what you do with Elliot Ramos. We're going to see how this whole thing plays out. But higher expectations, whether or not it's Bob Melvin, that's just the nature of the beast. It's the nature of the industry. So we'll see what happens. One more segment for you. And when we return, where do the Giants go from here? Locked On Giants. Don't move. Where do the Giants go from here? Well, first things first, it's an off day today. So they'll have a day to take their medicine, lick their wounds, flush it, any of the cliches you want to throw in there before the Tampa Bay Rays come to town. And by the way, I was watching the Rays yesterday. That Chandler Simpson, he might be a problem for the Giants. I mean, he's a problem for everyone, but looking at some of the defensive issues that all the infielders have had, including Matt Chapman at times, Chandler Simpson, as far as a leadoff position, is an absolute nightmare. So let's just keep an eye on that one. But there was a lot of talk yesterday about everything being over. You know, this was the funeral. This was the end. We can't pretend anymore. And I do think it was a bit of a slight overreaction, simply because if that is your thought process, then you should have thought that it was already over. We mentioned Fangraphs and how they had the Giants slated at a 5% chance to get into the playoffs, right? So they weren't going to win every single game. They were going to lose again. Besides the fact that it was a terrible game, they already had a slim chance to get into the playoffs. Before that even happened, right? 5.5 games back right now with 41 games left to play, with 4 teams battling for that last spot, including the Mets who are in that spot. So no, I wouldn't bet on it. I would also say that stranger things have happened. And with that being said, and as far as this being the nail in the coffin, this is what Bob Melvin had to say. Here's the quote. "We might be at the point here pretty soon where we give some guys some days off and look at some other guys," he said. "I still hate to admit we are at that point." That's what Bob Melvin had to say about where the Giants currently are. This is my assumption on how the rest of this goes. I'd assume they see if they can sweep the Rays or play really well against the Rays, because I know I just talked about Chandler Simpson. The Rays aren't good, right? They have some good players, but they're not good. So they see if they can sweep the Rays, at the very worst, win that series. Then they go on the road, all right? They go from there, they go on the road. Maybe we see some new faces during that series, but I doubt it. My thought process, besides right field carousel, my thought process is they get a nice series win, and then they go around and they go down to San Diego, and that's probably where this thing gets a little bit ugly, because they got San Diego. Then after that, they have the best team in baseball with the Brewers, right? So maybe they take some young players on that road trip. But my thought process is they essentially attempt to apologize to Giants fans. They win the series against the Rays. They go down to the Padres. They got the Brewers. After that, I know they have the Cubs and the Orioles. So Orioles aren't playing very well. But after that Padres and Brewers situation, that might be the end of it. So they have the Rays, like I said, then the Padres, the Brewers, then they host the Cubs, right? So they host the Cubs after that. My thought process is they're going to win the series against the Rays, essentially say sorry to the fans, go down to San Diego. That's not going to go well. Go to Milwaukee. That's not going to go well. Maybe they implement some other guys, some new names on that road trip. But when they come back for the Cubs and the Orioles, that's when we'll start to see some changes. That's when we'll start to see, okay, let's see who else has got something going for them besides the names that we've already seen, or just give some legitimate at-bats and some legitimate time to the names that we have seen. The Drew Gilberts of the world, right? Because at that point, after those road trips, you get back with about 30 games left to play. So you see what you have with Drew Gilbert. You see what you have with Luciano. And real quick on the right field carousel, what are we actually trying to see? I've seen some people, because I'm big on social media at @the_Styles Files, Styles with an I. You can see it in the corner, and people are saying we don't want to see Matos. We know that he can't figure it out. We don't want to see Luciano. We know that he hasn't figured it out. Well, unless you just come in setting the world on fire, right? A lot of times this is how it goes with players. They bounce up, they bounce down, and they eventually figure it out, similar to what Elliot Ramos did. Or you have the other side of it. Tyler Fitzgerald set the world on fire. I would even argue he maybe did too much. He almost played too well. He set the expectations at a ridiculous level, and I think Tyler Fitzgerald has tried to chase that, maybe not consciously, but even subconsciously. He's tried to chase that this whole season and hasn't been able to figure it out. He almost put too big of a target on his back. So I don't understand people. Well, we already brought him up and it didn't work. What are you just going to give everyone random at-bats, right? Until you get a true sample size. Now, Drew Gilbert, for example. Drew Gilbert has had, 3 series now? 3 series. If that's enough for you, I get it, right? I don't actually know what the right answer is. He's one for whatever, right? Because he had the little duck fart. He's one for whatever. I understand that you can't keep running him out there. So, yeah, you can send him back to AAA, but I don't want people now saying, well, Drew Gilbert, he was terrible. We can't see him again. That's not how this works, right? Luciano, you get some time to figure out where your head is at, and then you bring them back up. These processes are slower than a lot of us would hope. Or you get a flash in the pan like Tyler Fitzgerald, and then the next season, okay, it's your spot, and he still hasn't figured it out. So all of these journeys look a lot different. And the reality is, like I said, I don't think that the right fielder is on the roster. I think that is the easier position. And throughout the summer, we'll take a look at throughout the offseason, we'll take a look at the outfielders available. But I think that is going to be a pretty easy spot for Buster, in theory, to fill. Now, whether that person actually produces or not is a different conversation. But I still would like to see at least what Luciano with certain new guys like that have. So Drew Gilbert, he's gotten, it feels like 3 series. He's probably going to be headed back to Sacramento just on principle. Let's just pull somebody up, see what they can do. I know there were conversations about guys just getting rest days, Jung-Hoo Lee getting rest days, guys like that. So you're just giving an opportunity to some of the other players. I would give Matos is another name. We've seen Matos. He mashes in triple. It's a cycle. He stinks in the bigs. He mashes in AAA, gets called back up and stinks again. Let's just bring him up again. Let's just see what he has one more time. In those 30 games, Matos, and you're not just going to not play guys, right? Or maybe you are, but Matos, he could get, 10 consistent games, something like that. I already mentioned Luciano. I would also give a look to Thomas Gavello. Okay, he's out of Antioch. Shout out to the Bay. Shout out to Antioch. He's in Sacramento right now. All right. Hey, let's see what he can do. He's a second baseman. I like Casey Schmidt. He played well, but I don't think there's any reason Casey Schmidt. I mean, I would bring up Thomas Gavello over Koss. I feel like we've seen enough of Koss. So Thomas Gavello's been hitting pretty well out here in Sacramento. And obviously they still have Brett Wisely out here in Sacramento as well. So guys like that, let's just see who is willing to figure this thing out, or who is able to figure this thing out. Jesus Rodriguez, he's number 16 on the Giants' top prospect list. You could bring him up. He is still slated as a catcher. As I mentioned, I've never seen him catch. I've only seen him DH with the Sacramento River Cats, but he can't hit. That's what we know. he can hit. Maybe you bring him up, see if you can find a position for him, something like that. So guys like that, if this is where this thing is headed, then go ahead and do that. There's a big conversation going on right now regarding Bryce Eldridge and whether or not Bryce Eldridge should get pulled up or whether they should just let him cook in AAA and do what he does and bring him up with a clean slate. I don't see a reason not to bring him up now. Let him see some big league pitching. That's probably where I'm at with that. But with all that being said, I'm not fully putting the Giants in the casket until I see what happens to them against the Rays. That's where I'm at. All right. And you can agree with me, disagree with me. It's all fine and good, but that's where I am at. Thank you for listening to Locked On Giants and making Locked On your first listen every single day. For your second listen, find the all-night Locked On MLB game night. Every game, every night until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB game night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We will talk to you again tomorrow. Until then, thank you for listening to Locked On Giants. Peace.